Hello, my name is Christina Johnson. For this project, my group members consisted of Emily Hermiston, Pamela Jackson, and Gladys Ingram. In this presentation, we will begin by discussing the Hmong population, their history, culture, and customs. I will then give an overview of the issue of human trafficking and go into a more in-depth discussion of how the Hmong people are affected by human trafficking. The total worldwide Hmong population is estimated to be at 5 million, with 3.1 million living in China. The Hmong people are originally from China and are now widely distributed around the world, with large populations in the United States, Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand. Of the 200,000 to 300,000 Hmong people in the United States, there are significant Hmong communities in California, Seattle, Washington, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Minnesota. The Hmong people have been greatly influenced by the regions that they have lived. Their culture and professional diversity reflect these varied influences. This map highlights the widespread populations of the Hmong population throughout the world. The Hmong have long called southern China and Southeast Asia their homeland. War brought them to Laos, and their main community was there for generations. Further political conflict between those people around the Hmong forced them into the refugee camps in Thailand and to further immigrate around the world as refugees. Traditionally, the Hmong practiced shamanism. A shaman can communicate with the spirit and ancestral world and to help a person achieve balance, which will heal illness and maintain health. There are also large Christian and Buddhist communities in the Hmong, a further example of how they are influenced by the region that they settle in. Traditionally, the Hmong self-govern, utilizing the clan system, which delineates families. Clan leaders will resolve social and political issues, but they are not looked at as a political leader or president. A leader is generally well educated, but more importantly, is well respected by its clan members. The people surrounding the Hmong community in Laos battled over communism, and the Hmong were seen on both sides of the wars, but they are not a communist culture. During times of illness, a shaman may be called in to aid in determining the cause of illness and prescribing treatment. It is believed that a human can accidentally injure or otherwise offend a spirit, and as retribution, the spirit can then inflict pain or sickness on the person. A person can fall seriously ill or even die if they unknowingly become the victim of an evil spirit. In the Hmong culture, shamans are held in high regard and receive much respect. The Hmong utilize herbal or natural remedies, but they also rely on the supernatural as well for treatment. The Hmong people look to their religion for explanations of wellness and disease, as well as the life cycle itself. Because they believe light and dark cohabitate, the spirit world is part of their everyday experience. Disease is often blamed on disruption of balance and harmony between souls belonging to humans and spirits in the spirit world. If Hmong should become Christian, they rely on clergy and prayers for healing. They also still may utilize herbs, but may avoid a shaman. Magic healers also may be a part of the health community. They utilize their skill, which is naturally occurring, not spiritual illness. In general, the Hmong are mistrustful of American doctors because of the perceived cold nature of the interactions as compared to the more known ones with their shamans. There are often mix-ups at pharmacies and clinics due to the same last name. The Hmong have heard of the story of vampires associated with blood drawing for labs as really collecting blood for the vampire doctors to drink. When the Hmong person passes away during their hospitalization, it is often believed it is again at the hand of the vampire doctor. The Hmong are present-oriented, and calendars and clocks are rare in this community. In rural communities, the actual date of a person's birth is often not known, and many people who immigrated as refugees were given an arbitrary birth date, and their age may be significantly incorrect. This is a consideration for healthcare workers. Another healthcare consideration is that the Hmong patient may show up at the beginning of the day for their appointment, though the appointment may not be until that afternoon. When it comes to social events, however, it is seen as impolite to show up on time, and gatherings may not start for several hours after the indicated time. It is inappropriate for men and women to sit too close to one another during conversation, and it's also inappropriate when speaking with a stranger. Personal space is very valued. It's also seen as rude to touch a Hmong person's head, especially a children's. The Hmong are a very well organized society, and the clan is the largest unit of their society. There are 18. The clan is passed through the father's line, and when a woman marries, she joins her husband's clan. It's unacceptable to marry within your own clan, and if divorced, the woman does not return to her father's clan. The clan provides social services and support, and a member turns to this clan within a time of need. Each clan has a myriad of skills and workers to support the clan. Within the clan, there are sub-clans, which are made up of families who are not necessarily blood-related, but share religious practices and rituals. Within the sub-clan, there are ceremonial families. These share ancestors or a bloodline, and they also share responsibilities of the family. Ceremonial families are further made up of extended families and finally nuclear families. Studies have shown that Hmong share the top 3 causes of death with the non-Hispanic and white, those being circulatory diseases, neoplasm, and respiratory diseases. However, Hmong women have a greater rate of death from injuries and poisonings, and Hmong men have a greater rate of death from digestive diseases, especially stomach cancer. Both men and women are at a greater risk from chronic endocrine and immune dysfunction. In the Hmong population, boys are preferred over girls. Boys are deemed superior. It is said that a man's power is in public. His social status depends on his role in the community. He makes the important decisions for the family and is responsible for the rituals of the ancestral worship for the family. By contrast, a woman's power is in the home. The woman cares for the household and the children. She does not work outside the home or attend school. She can gain status by birthing many sons, but her social status mainly depends on that of her husband. A certain amount of religious belief in the Hmong is in animism, the belief that one interacts with the spirits of natural objects. The spirits of nature can cause physical and psychological harm if displeased. Between 1790 and 1860, the Hmong rebelled against Chinese rule and fled to Southeast Asia, namely Vietnam and Laos. The Hmong came under the French occupation in the 1890s. They were heavily taxed and forced to exponentially increase their production of opium for French trade. A rebellion against the French between 1918 and 1921 brought a measure of autonomy to the Hmong, though they were still under French rule. During World War II, the Hmong could be found fighting on both sides. Following World War II, the French sought to reclaim Laos, but were defeated in 1954. Following this, the U.S. sent secret aid to support Laos in order to slow the ascent of communist rule in the area. Throughout Vietnam conflict, the majority of the Hmong aligned with the United States, but approximately 20% joined forces with the Viet Cong. In 1975, Laos fell to communist rule, and the Hmong fled to refugee camps in Thailand. The Hmong traditionally were self-sufficient villages. Though not wealthy, the families of these villages grew food and traded with one another for skills, meat, or labor. Large farm animals were a symbol of wealth, but smaller animals such as pigs, goats, and domestic animals were common. Opium was used as a medicine for aches and pains, but the production was greatly increased and exploited under French rule. Now the Hmong could frequently be found in markets selling elaborately crafted embroidery and mats. Before war tore through Laos, there was not much differentiation between the classes. All families worked land and lived in similar conditions. After war and relocation, many families have fallen into poverty, while others joined high ranks in the military and now held more status. Following the war, women gained more status because they had to join the workforce and may have been the sole earner for their family while their husband was at war. This change in the status of women is frequently seen in the Hmong families that have relocated to the United States. In pre-war, Laos boys learned trade from their fathers, and girls learned skills of the home from their mother. The children helped support the family's chores and daily activities starting at a young age. Now, schools are more established but are supported by the Vietnamese government, so lessons are taught in Vietnamese and are biased towards their culture, neither of which supports the attendance of Hmong children. Access to schools was and continues to be an issue for Hmong in the rural areas of Laos. Not only is it difficult to get to a school or a teacher, but for a child to go, the family must give up the labor that child would have provided for that day while also paying to transport them. The number of schools in Laos has doubled from 1976 to 1996, more than 50% of which are primary schools. This growth represents an exponential increase in accessibility but does not address the barriers discussed earlier, as it is still an issue. There are three main endemic diseases that the Hmong have endured in Laos and Vietnam. Schistosomiasis is an infection caused by parasitic worms contracted through contact with contaminated water. It is prevalent in southern Laos and can cause bloody stool, urine, and abdominal pain, liver enlargement, fibrosis of the bladder, kidney infection, and anemia. It disables more than kills, but it is preventable with preventative chemotherapy. Foot and mouth disease is a highly contagious viral disease that affects hooved livestock. It causes decreased milk production, hoof damage, chronic mastitis, and high mortality rates among young animals. While it has been eradicated in North America and Western Europe, it is still a problem in Southeast Asia. Finally, rabies is spread through the saliva of infected animals, and it affects the central nervous system, causing brain damage and death. It is preventable by vaccine, but accessibility to the vaccine remains an issue. It is hypothesized that it may be spread through dogs transported for meat. The Mekong River is the main source of transportation throughout Laos, but the area is prone to flooding and soil erosion as well as landslides. The area is also at risk for monsoon and drought in the rainy day and dry seasons, respectively. The climate is that of a tropical monsoon. Laos has a rainy season from May to November, followed by a dry season from December to April. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime defines human trafficking as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, or the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. There are many faces to human trafficking, and it is a worldwide issue. Countless organizations devote themselves to ending human trafficking and to rehabilitating their victims. The most prevalent form of trafficking experienced by the Hmong is the sale of child brides. Young girls, when married, are no longer under the care of their birth parents, and so marriage can relieve a large financial burden. Young girls are given to Chinese men or American Hmong in exchange for a bride price paid to the family. These girls are most frequently less than 15 years old, and many have not even started puberty yet. They may be a man's second or third wife. Another form of trafficking these young brides is without the consent of their families. Traffickers kidnap girls to be sold as brides. When this happens and the girl goes missing, her family must think she was taken by a husband as part of an ancient practice known as bride capture. They expect to hear from the groom or his family in 2 to 3 days, and when they do not and finally file a grievance that their daughter is missing, it is far too late. In large communities of Hmong in America, it is often known when a bride is a child that she may not hear of her own free will, but it is not discussed. As long as the girl's parents consented to the marriage, there is little legal recourse. However, one child bride in Minnesota is speaking out. Pena Vane claims that she was raped and impregnated at the age of 14 before being forced to marry a 43-year-old man. After coming to the United States with her child and husband, Vane obtained a protective order from him and dissolved their marriage, which was one of capture rather than legal marriage. She is now suing him for $450,000. This may be the first case to seek monetary damages from child tourism. Vane is suing under Mashlah's law, which is federal law providing civil remedy and monetary compensation for child pornography, child sex tourism, child sex trafficking, and similar cases. The United States has made great efforts towards providing culturally competent care. The number of doctors familiar with indigenous and homeopathic practices grows daily. However, there is a risk when confronted with trafficking victims that their bruises and scars could be mistaken as marks of home remedies. It is often of immense importance that these young women be treated by females, as they are very uncomfortable discussing such personal issues. There are legal issues in the United States as well with a specific kind of sex trafficking that these men can be protected because they are married. Between these Hmong tendency to not speak out about the issues or look the other way, and the U.S. legally limiting their recourse if they do seek help, it can be very difficult for a child bride to be saved from her situation. The Hmong have been intertwined with world affairs always. Their presence on both sides of the world in local wars have made it difficult to categorize them, but their culture has been greatly influenced by the various religions that they inhabited. They maintain refugee status across the globe and continue to be in crisis and discriminated against in their former homes of Vietnam and China. In 2005, the United States implemented the bilateral trade agreement with Laos, which should act to normalize trade between the two countries. This could greatly bolster the Laos economy. We thank you for your time and hope that this has been an informative presentation. We encourage you to further investigate our references to learn more.